Welcome to Ag Perspectives. I'm Jim Wenger. At this year's Kansas State Fair on Ag Innovation Day, KFRM and the State Fair sponsored a series of power chats talking about innovations in agriculture. We'll be bringing those to you here on Ag Perspectives. Today we'll start with HitchPin machine sharing.
I am so pleased and proud to introduce Trevor today because this company is so new that literally it went live last night. Now, I'm going to probably compare this to some things that are technically incorrect. A lot of us know how Uber works. We have the Uber app on our phones. Airbnb, we have that on our phone. And more or less, it's connecting somebody that has a surplus asset to somebody who needs and wants that asset and arrives at a price. The general skeleton of that has worked. Obviously, the world likes that, and it has made value in the market. And Trevor and his company, HitchPin, has been working on this for how many years, Trevor?
The concept's been around for a while. Actual technical development, we've been moving really fast on. So we're a true sort of high-tech software company, and the amount that we've built just even in the last several months has been pretty incredible.
You know, again, we know how the concept of Uber works, yep. But this was tougher.
It absolutely is. You think about a rideshare service, you got a couple different types of cars. You think about the diversity of agriculture. Cutting wheat is very different than somebody that's baling hay, or you get into the specialty crops, it gets even more diverse. So I think that's been a great part for our team, is to dive into this and just see how complex agriculture is, and also with that complexity comes some real opportunity to improve it. So I kind of like to, for my non-ag buddies out on the coast, that I kind of tease them. I say, if you were going to book an airline ticket and you couldn't use the internet to do it, how would you do it? And the answer is, would you call every airline, get every schedule, and then call back the one with the best price and the best flight? And that seems kind of ridiculous, sort of in modern travel. And in many cases, that's where we're at with agriculture right now. It's I need a service done. I may know that there's 3 guys or 4 guys around that can do that, but I don't know their availability. I don't know, their pricing. There's a lot of those variables that are just very manual at this time.
Well, and how many times have I heard that somebody said, man, I could have really used a combine for a few days, and the other guy says, boy, I wish I'd have known that.
Absolutely.
Because I was done. I wish I'd have known you needed that, because I could have come over, but I just didn't know. I might have been 5 miles apart or 10 miles.
Yeah.
Or, on the other hand, how about the guy that is in southern Oklahoma that gets hailed out, has a combine payment, and would love to have a place for that combine to go during wheat harvest?
Absolutely. We grew our farming operation in the 1980s, which was a pretty terrible time to be farming. And I like to tease that at one point we had 5 combines, and they were all in various states of disrepair. And you'd start with 5, and that you would hope that one was working by the end. That's not going to be the case in the future. I mean, our farm, for instance, hasn't owned combines for years, and the big challenge has been, okay, if you're going to hire these services done, how do you get them on a reliable schedule? How do you know that you're first on the list and not, 5th on the list? And I think that's where HitchPin comes in and can really help with that. I think you mentioned a couple really important points. Is a lot of these producers bought pretty expensive equipment years ago, and now they're trying to figure out how to monetize it when prices are really low. So if they can pick up a job that's close in their neighborhood, and it may be that neighbor that they don't even know needs that service right now, you can increase the revenue on one side, and then on the other side, hopefully save some costs for these folks that aren't going to go out and purchase new equipment.
And I'm sorry, I just have to keep going back to Uber, because I know and understand it, and I know a lot of the listeners don't. But when I go to Uber, it quotes me a price.
Yep.
And I decide if when I decide who I'm going to pick, I also look at their ratings.
Absolutely.
you know, it's not necessarily the cheap guy.
Absolutely.
I look at is there parallels?
Oh, and that's something that we've spent a lot of time thinking about. You know, you don't want to create a race to the bottom on pricing in this particular case. You want to have these producers that do a really good job. You know, they're reliable. They've got the appropriate equipment. They're not, you know, they're not broken down all the time. There's all these variables, and if that can be built into a reputation score, it's a pretty powerful thing, because as somebody selects which service provider to use, you know, they may be more price sensitive, or they may be more interested in the timeliness. There's all kinds of factors that are individual to the person that needs the service. So, and the rating on our app is very similar to Airbnb and other sharing economy platforms. It goes both ways. So you're rating the person providing the service, and then the same rating goes the other direction.
I think that's wonderful. I think every craftsman that goes to a home, whether he's a plumber or electrician or whatever, should rate the person when they leave. Because there's certain people go, well, I can't get a plumber to come anymore. Well, it's the same way with this. If you aren't a reasonable client to these folks, the world's going to know it.
I actually am pretty excited about it. I mean, you know, folks in ag country tend to be pretty cooperative and work with each other. But like you said, I mean, some people are easier to work for than others. And so to have sort of everyone on their best behavior, because they know that it's going to impact their ability to either get a service or provide a service in the future, I actually think we're going to see performance levels that are much higher on both sides than through a manual traditional form.
You mentioned being on their best behavior, and that's kind of the way I am in an Uber. It's like, because I know that guy's going to rate me, and I got no control over what he's going to rate me, and this is really the same, right?
It's a feedback loop. It's a really powerful feedback loop, and again, I think long term what we're doing on the site is somebody will build their reputation, and you will see. In the beginning, it is very much you know, one user rating another user, but in the future we'll have a lot of data that can really identify those producers that are very solid at what they do. And I think long term, if I were kind of projecting what's going to happen to agriculture, I think things are going to get much more specialized. I think you'll see producers, instead of trying to own the entire spectrum of equipment, they're going to say, I'm really good at this. You know, I'm really good at hay operations, or I'm really good at harvest. And because of that, you know, they're going to focus on that. They're going to be good at it. They're going to take jobs in other places. And then on the flip side, they may not own that other equipment that they don't particularly enjoy doing or don't want to do, or the capital costs are too high.
Do you envision this being so timely that it's like, okay, I'm in the northern part of the county, it rained last night, and it's like, man, if I had some ground in the southern part of the county, I could be running. And that guy goes and he looks and he goes, hey, there's 3 guys in the northern part of the county that would come plant today because they got rain. Do you envision it being that way?
You're absolutely right. And the sophistication on real-time availability is absolutely something that we're working with right now. So if you think about you know, sort of other sharing economy, it's not as affected by weather. And in this particular case, let's say I had jobs scheduled here, it got rained out. If I can find jobs that I can go take over here, it keeps that machinery running. And particularly for the guys doing custom work, I mean, anytime that machine is sitting there, it's costing them in labor, it's costing them in time, and all these items. So I think the level of sophistication that we can bring to real-time availability is pretty amazing, actually.
One thing with Uber, though, is I don't worry about paying that cab driver with my credit card. Uber has it. I get out, and it's all paid for. It's done. I don't even have to wait for a receipt, because that receipt gets emailed. Does this work the same way?
Yeah, and I would say we are different in some pretty major ways. One major difference is the producers that are out there today are really sophisticated. I mean, these are folks that are money managers. They're managing big equipment and a lot of costs, and so they are independent in their pricing decisions and all that. And, you know, we provide a lot of tools to help with that, but you know, at the end of the day, these are their operations, and we're just connecting the folks that really need services and those that can provide them. And the one principal thing that I think you were mentioning that is tremendously valuable is we escrow the payments between the two. So if I'm a guy that needs custom wheat harvest, and you're the one that's providing it, as soon as the app connects them and both agree that this is what we're going to do, we escrow the payment, and it sits there until the service is done. And what it does is it protects the seller and the buyer, or the seller of the service and the buyer of the service. If there's non-performance, the payment goes back to where it really needs to go. And that's a huge thing. I mean, you think about these folks providing custom services, they may do the service and not get paid for months. Right. And eventually, we'll have it to where the machine rolls off the field, and at that point, the payment goes through. And there's no invoicing, no chasing down anybody, no grabbing a check, none of that stuff. The payment hits the bank account directly.
That's the first part of Ag Perspectives. We'll be back with more from the Kansas State Fair, talking about HitchPin machine sharing right after this. Welcome back to Ag Perspectives. Today we're hearing from the Kansas State Fair on Ag Innovation Day as we bring you information about new innovations in agriculture. And today we're hearing about HitchPin machine sharing.
Well, certainly, I mean, I mentioned earlier this is very new technology, but you and I talked about the concept several years ago, and I noticed in your original rollout, hay is a large part of the model.
Yep.
How did that come about, or why did that come about, and how does that work?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about the services side, but products is another big part of what we're doing, and at least around I grew up farming near Abilene, and hay this year was in short supply. Rain came late. So we got all kinds of rain later, but not at the beginning, and so demand for hay is really high. And we've talked to hundreds of farmers about what we're doing at this point. And you'll be in a farm show, and you'll see one farmer come by, and he'll say, "When can I list my hay? I can't get rid of it." And 5 minutes later, you'll see another producer come by that says, my cattle are starving. I got to find some hay. And so hay is the two services that we're starting with, or service and products that we're starting with at the beginning are buying and selling hay, and then fall harvest is the other one that we're doing. And on the hay transaction, it's pretty amazing. We have actually some app screenshots here, but if you think about the normal process of buying hay, you're calling around, you get voicemail, you only know about a couple guys that are selling it. Maybe you pull a piece of paper off of the post at the co-op. I mean, it's a very manual process, and we have an app screenshot here, but literally in less than 60 seconds, you can find hay in your immediate area and purchase it through the app, and have the payment be escrowed and all of that, sort of all that performance in a fraction of the time that it would take to do one phone call.
Now, you talk about escrow of payment. Do I mail a check, or how do I make my payment?
So on the payer's side, so if I'm buying the hay, I can buy it two ways. I can buy it with an ACH transaction, or I can buy it with a credit card. And so, obviously for larger transactions, the ACH probably makes more sense to do that. And it literally means it pulls right out of the bank account, it sits there, and then it gets pushed via ACH out. So everything is digital. Nobody's having to go to the bank or do anything like that.
Okay, all a business has to have a margin to survive. Who pays you?
Yeah, so HitchPin is a free app to download. You can download and list for free. The only time we make money is when somebody else is making money. So, but on that hay transaction, for instance, if the person posts hay and somebody buys it, then when we transfer the funds between the two, we take a portion of that success fee, and then that's sort of how we generate revenue. And our goal is to have that fee be really small. I mean, if you look at the overall size of the ag industry, if you're performing a great service for these producers, it's an enormous market, and also just a real service. If for instance, you're going to get paid you're going to get paid 95 cents on your dollar right now, or maybe 6 months from now getting paid. There's real advantage to being paid now.
Absolutely. So, what made you get into this business?
Yeah, I'm a farm kid. I grew up near Abilene, and I can see it firsthand on our farm. My folks still farm, and they're always wondering, is it time to start thinking about retirement? And I was thinking about, for my family, if I were to go back and farm, the amount of equipment upgrades and other things I would have to do are pretty amazing. And so you see this imbalance. You see a lot of these producers that would like to grow their operations. They would like to pick up more land, some of the younger guys, for instance. And how do they do that with the price of machinery and the price of land? And then on the flip side, you see folks that are starting to wind down their equipment operations. And so there's a natural imbalance that's taking place right now. And sort of back to the 80s, we saw a lot of farms go out of business at that time. And I think if we're not careful, we're going to see that happen again with commodity prices being low. And so we've been racing really as fast as we can to try to get this platform in place so that those folks that really need to generate more revenue can generate that revenue, keep those farms in business, and keep going. And then for the folks that aren't ready to sell land, they can still have a hand in farming. They're just hiring it done. And I think to the credit, we're now working with a number of ag organizations. So we're partnering with Farm Bureau, FFA, 4-H, and the Carl program. These are all organizations. I was a FFA and 4-H kid. I drug a sheep around the ring and all that stuff. And so as an ag company, this is the future of our customer base. And so I'm excited about providing an app that will allow some of these producers to pick up the revenue they need and hopefully grow their operations. And to that regard, we're going to be supporting those groups directly financially through HitchPin. So, as those organizations introduce people to the app, we're going to be sending money back to those organizations.
So, how does one go about building an app? I assume you go to the Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I love that question. I'm a Kansan through and through here, and I've had a chance to be on.
I will tell you, though, if you went to Morganville, Kansas, where I grew up, I don't think you could find anybody to help you make your app.
Here's what I believe. Intelligence is everywhere. There are sharp people everywhere. I've actually got members of our team here today, and these are Kansas kids, farm kids from places like Kansas and Texas and Missouri, and they're on par with anywhere in the world. And we're a serious tech company. Like the technology that we're using, it would be the same sort of level of sophistication that you would see in the Valley or anywhere else. And I kind of like the idea that we're building this here in the heart of ag country. It keeps us close to our customers. It keeps us honest about what we're building. And so I think it's the best of both worlds. We're finding talent, and we're certainly providing value to our neighbors.
Well, again, I remember the first time I did Uber and took the big plunge, and I was by myself, so I could let that traumatic experience happen in the privacy of my own self. It is a little scary.
Oh, it's
and so how do I get started, and how does it work, and what do I do?
It's fascinating. Airbnb, for instance, when they were first getting going, everybody thought they were crazy. You're going to rent out a part of your house to a complete stranger, and of course, that's a billion-dollar company now. And I think we're going to look back probably, at this time in a couple of years from now, and we're going to go, well, of course you would order a service on your phone. Like, why would I spend all day calling around? I mean, I think it'll be so common that we'll look back and think this was an obvious thing. It's not obvious building something like this, I can tell you. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and I really appreciate the team that we have. But I think in the future we're going to see this, and actually I think it's a good time for it. I think producers are ready for tools that will help them be more efficient.
So I go to my app store and look for HitchPin?
So right now This is our first sort of public announcement of what we're doing. We've been really quiet up until this point. And what we're going to do is, if you go to HitchPin.com, you can sign up and register, and we're going to allow sort of a limited group of users in at the very beginning. And really, our goal is to build something that's truly helpful for the farmer. And so with this initial group, they'll have access to the most advanced features of the app, and then that'll all happen before a broader public distribution. So if you go to HitchPin.com and click register and put your information in, we're going to take just a small subset of that and then roll out the official app here shortly after that. So it's not available on the App Store yet. We'll actually send you a specific link, sort of an early access link.
It brings up a question, though. Is it likely to be most applicable to my phone or to my laptop or to my desktop?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're building it so it's a cross-platform. So it'll have an iOS app, Apple. It'll be on Android and a web platform. The two that we're starting with first are iOS, your iPhone, and the web. And actually, I think we're going to see most of the transactions happen on the phone. So we've got a good native app, which we showed some of the screenshots for. And I think, if you can sit in your truck and, the machine is broken down next to you and you realize the weather's coming in, and literally in a few minutes you can order that service and do it from your phone, I think it's an amazingly powerful thing. I mean, when I was growing up, everybody had pliers on their belt, right? And now you see a smartphone and pliers sometimes, but certainly a smartphone. And literally, this will be the most powerful tool that you have in the truck with you.
Trevor McKeeman, HitchPin.com.
That is Ag Perspectives for today. We'll bring you more from Power Chats on Ag Innovation Day from this year's State Fair on tomorrow's program. For KFRM, I'm Jim Winger.